am so excited to have today's guest on the show. I am going to let them introduce themselves and we'll get started the same way we always do, listeners. Tell me who you are and what do you do?
Yes, hi. Grateful one. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here with you today. I will say anytime that I am invited into a space to talk about me and my work and all of that, I'm always just extremely grateful. With that being said, my name is Dr. John Higgins, also known as Dr. John Paul. I am a recovering educator, thought leader, writer, award-winning podcaster myself. I host the Black Fat Femme podcast, where me and my co-host Jordan, we talk about all things being Black, fat, and femme, really just trying to make sure that we center our voices in a very positive light in a world that's often trying to deem us as the, basically violent and deviant and all of the things that society likes to say about us. Yeah. And ultimately, educator, I still am an educator, more on the professor lens. I teach at night, and then I also oversee and work for a nonprofit where I get to help and support and advocate for LGBTQ youth. So I am out here doing all of the things, but ultimately really just trying to uplift the voices of our people.
All other things. I love that you said recovering educator. Did you know that I was an educator?
No, actually, I did not.
Okay, so you are in the right space because a lot of our listeners are educators or former educators, or they are on the brink of stepping out of that space. So this is going to be great. All right, my listeners know what's coming, but you don't. So I like to do a fire round of questions, just about 10 or 12 questions that are slightly random, but this allows the audience to get to know you a little bit better. It also helps the guests kind of relax a little bit into the show. So, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, first question. One misconception people have about you.
Wow, that wow. Not me feeling like Beyonce. Wow, what do I want to do with my life? One misconception about me, I think that I don't know. Wow, I don't think this is the thing. I don't think about people enough. I try not to spend so much time thinking about what other people think about me. RuPaul tells me that what other people think about me is none of my business. So I try to live in that vein. But I would say I think a big misconception, and maybe this is more along the lines of folks who don't really know me or my work. I think people think I'm always upset about something, and in reality, I'm not. I tend to be the person that, ever since I was a kid, I was always the person that would see the injustice in the room or see the injustice in spaces and be the person to name it. And so I'm always in the mind of, y'all think I'm upset about everything, but y'all are not upset. Like, y'all are not angry enough. Right. Like, y'all are not the people. Like, why is no one else saying anything about this? So that's kind of the vein I live in. Well, John, you're always upset about something. No, I just wish more people would speak up so I didn't always have to. So
that's an answer right there. Okay, number 2, a hill you're willing to die on.
A hill that I'm willing to die on is that Aphrodisiac is the best album Aphrodisiac is one of the best albums that Brandy has put out. I know a lot of people shade it, but I definitely think Aphrodisiac was where we saw Brandy really settle into her voice as a talent.
Get with that. Question 3, a book you think everyone should read.
The book, Joy DeGruy, what is it called?
Post-traumatic slave syndrome?
Yes, that one. Thank you. Yes, I think everyone should read that book because whereas most books are very scholarly and a lot of them have a lot of like pedagogy and they have a lot of different concepts, I think Joy really breaks it down in a way where she uses her own lived experiences day by day to explain the systems that we are all living in terms of oppression. And I think it's just a fantastic book from cover to cover.
I second that. I used to teach that book. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Next question. Your go-to comfort food.
Go-to comfort food. I'm a dessert girly. I'm going to always go to a donut. If I really am having a day.
What kind of donut?
I genuinely love, it's a toss-up between a maple long john or a cruller. I love both of those or sometimes a jelly donut will do it for me too.
Yeah, classic. Okay. If you had to listen to one album on a road trip only, what are you listening to?
I would say Beyonce's Renaissance.
Best advice
one of the best albums ever created.
Ever, yes. Best advice you've ever been given.
Best advice I think I've given. I forget the name of the TED. Actually, their name is TED. They used to work in partnership with me with Camp Pride before it went defunct. And they also did some stuff with the HRC, and I also was in community with them around that. They gave me some advice years ago about this idea of how to deliver a message. And sometimes when we deliver our messages, especially if we're extremely passionate about what we're saying, people get caught up in the passion of the message and they don't actually hear what the message is. So really just thinking about, especially if you are angry about something, or if you are very extremely like your anger has led you to be passionate because of racism, and understanding that, right? Not saying that you can't be angry and that you can't be passionate, but I think often we live in a world, especially as Black and brown people, that when we do get angry or we do get passionate about something, folks tend to dismiss the message. And so sometimes figuring out how do we package the message to make sure that people can actually get it.
That's real good. All right. The last person you blocked and why?
Baby, I block people every day on Threads. I genuinely don't.
Threads is the place for blocking. My God.
Baby, some days you just have to be like yesterday, what did I post yesterday? I posted something. Oh, yeah, I was posting about, this is a first world problem. And that's why I keep saying it's just a stupid first world problem. I left my iPad on the plane yesterday. I flew back in from Advocacy Day in Sacramento. And as I was flying back in, I had so many people pinging me and asking me for stuff, and I was trying to get work stuff done, and I was trying to get home for meetings. And so I literally just ran, I literally got my stuff and ran off the plane so I got to hurry up and get home. When I got home, I was putting my stuff away and was like, where is my iPad? And I realized, I left my iPad on the plane. So I just commented about it. And my job, we have a deal with Southwest, and we only fly Southwest. And Southwest has all of these rules about when you leave stuff on their plane, how long it takes to get it back. Long story short, I said, you know what? I don't have the energy for that. I'm just going to pay for the lost fee. And I was talking about it online. I had asked, I said, should I wait, or should I pay the fee to get it, to have it replaced? And some person jumped in my DMs and was like, not my DMs, but jumped on the post and was like, you're being, it's your fault, not Southwest's fault. And I was like, you know what? I ain't got time for that. Block. I don't know. I simply just asked a question. Do y'all think it's better for me to wait, or is it better for me to just report it lost? That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted to know. And someone jumped in and so anytime I see when people, I was like, yeah, whatever. I'm not reading all that. Have a nice day. And I block them. I just don't. I don't.
Exactly. I don't even have time to get into it.
I'm not reading about it. Blocked. No, blocked. I don't have time for that. So yes, that is what I do.
Yes, we block people around here.
Amen.
The next question, something you've been meaning to say but haven't had the opportunity to.
Cuss them out today. Well, wait, hold on now. I don't know if this is a cussing podcast.
It's a cussing podcast.
Okay, yes. So one of the things I've been saying, and I probably could have said it, but I didn't. I've been wanting to say "fuck you" to somebody directly, but I've yet to get to a place where I have to say that to someone. But I know people who have, and so I would say one of the things I live on: cuss them out today so you can sleep better tonight. Ooh. That is literally one of my. I tell people, just cuss them out. And when you live in the time, everyone's like, oh, no, I'm not. I'm worried. No, fuck them. Fuck their feelings. Right. Cuss them out because they probably deserve it.
Immediately.
Especially if they're racist. Cuss them out.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love it. Okay. This question is a long one. But if you had your life to start completely over.
Yeah.
But you could take one thing with you into your new life that is either tangible or intangible, what would it be and why?
Wow, that's actually a really good question. What could I take with me? Probably my mom. I think if I had to start all over again, I would want the same mom. I always say my mom is with all her flaws and everything that my mom has gone through, because my mom also has gone through a lot. And I'm very fortunate that I've been able to be there for her in all of the stuff that she's gone through. I will say that my mom has probably been one of the best mothers, just off the rip. She's just an amazing Black woman. She's very much a Sagittarius. I will say that she is a Sagittarius, and as a Leo, we bump heads. But every day knowing that she's on this earth with me has been a blessing. And so I would probably say that I would want the same mom.
That was so beautiful. Shout out to moms everywhere.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Let's dive deeper. You said a lot just in that little intro segment that I want to dive into, but I'm gonna start on a straight and narrow path, and then we'll come back to a few of those things.
Okay.
So, this podcast is all about people on a journey, right? What
Mm-hmm.
journey are you currently on in your life right now?
I think I'm currently on. So this is a good question. And I've been wrestling with this for most of 2026. For years, I thought, and I'm not going to say I thought, for years, because it still is a want. My want was to quote unquote make it in entertainment and whatever that means. And I
Mm,
think for me, I've always wanted to sell a show. I've always wanted to write on a show. Obviously I'm a writer and I've written over 200 articles. I wrote a book. I write every day. I mean, I'm writing copy for work. So I'm constantly in this writer mode, right? People
mm,
know that about me at my org. Oh, John's really good with copy. And so that being said, the question has been with the entertainment industry looking the way that it looks and the fact that there's so many people who are like entertainment is dying. I think I'm in a place of trying to figure out like not necessarily what my next move is, because I actually really love what I'm doing and where I am in my career right now. It's just wanting to get to a place where I feel like I'm not constantly always having to like, how do I say this? Having to constantly respond, if that's the word. Like I think
mm,
especially when you're doing the work that I do, right? So when you're working in advocacy spaces, when you're constantly talking about injustice or when you're trying to uplift the voices and the stories of marginalized
mm,
people, there's a lot of response versus it being kind of like what can we do to get ahead of this? And so I would love to be in a place where I'm not just always working out of, oh my God, this terrible thing happened. What are we going to do now? Like, I would love for it to
yeah.
feel more fulfilling, if that makes sense. Like, a lot of my work now is very much this terrible thing is coming down the pipeline. We got to get ahead of it. Or it's this terrible thing
Mm,
is, I would love to be doing something that's a little bit more celebratory of
mm,
who I am, what I've been through, what got me here, and then ultimately how to kind of like help other people kind of get to that place too, considering all that we're still having to endure. And I also say this too, I think a lot of people think a lot of the stuff that we're dealing with now is new, and in a lot of ways it's not. A lot of
it's
it is
not.
just recycled
Yeah.
and it's just it's resurfacing in a different way, but it's very similar to stuff that's already existed. And I would love to be able to kind of help people understand that too, because I think a lot of it, like I said, is me just right now my mind is trying to keep people safe, trying to get people the resources they need, trying to get people to know that they
Mhm.
deserve to live or have the life that they want. And I'll just say it can be very exhausting. So I think that's something
Yeah.
that I've been thinking a lot about. Like, how do I not necessarily pivot, but really thinking about, I don't know what next year is going to bring or the year after that, or shit,
Mhm.
if I'll even be here. Hell, if we'll be here, because comets are dropping out the sky every left and right, child. But I will say that's the biggest thing is just thinking about what else I could be doing that could make a difference, but also not necessarily always be from a place of like, oh my God, the world is about to end.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm so glad you said that because I think a lot of people listening are in that same or similar space of, you
Hmm.
mentioned educator, advocate, right? You're starting from a place of burnout immediately
Hmm.
because when you
Hmm.
get into the work, you're already sick of the shit, right? So then you get
Yes.
into the work and now you're deeper within it and there's always
Yeah.
something that's coming up and you never really can recover to say like, hey, I'm tired of putting out fires because there's always a fire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
always.
exactly I think that's literally it. Like, I mean, I try to do my best to not always tell people what organization I work for, because I don't want it to come across as if I'm talking shit about the org. But I think the biggest thing for me is, I've constantly always been in jobs where like you said, I'm putting either a fire is getting ready to start and I'm doing
Mhm.
everything that I can to make sure that that fire doesn't spread, or like now the org that I'm in, the fire is here and now we're doing everything that we can to make sure that it doesn't impact people long term. And so it's just, I don't think that's the thing. Like, people see me and they see me bubbly and they see me cracking jokes, but I think people don't really get how tiring and how exhausting it can be to constantly be that person that's like, I'm basically doing, even though I'm a comms person, I'm constantly doing crisis PR, even
Mm,
when in everything, right? Especially
every
around our
yeah.
identities, I'm always doing crisis PR. So I'm just a little, like I said, just a little exhausted and trying to figure out like what can I do to still uplift our voices? And I say our voices as Black people, as queer people, as Black and queer people, but also do it from a place that allows me to be able to rest. So,
Yeah, rest.
mhm.
I wanna go back a little bit. I wanna go back a little bit because, you got into the space of education, working in nonprofits, but you also mentioned being
Yeah.
a really creative person. So what did
Hmm.
Little John want to be when you were younger,
Yeah.
envisioning kinda what the life would be like for you? I'm sure it was not, doing crisis PR, but what
No.
was life like for you growing up and what did you wanna do?
Yeah. So when you said Little John, I was like, yeah. But no,
I was thinking that in my head.
great minds, baby, great minds. As soon as you said Little John, immediately I heard in the back of my mind, because I wouldn't say I'm autistic, but I definitely am neurodivergent. And I heard, yeah, really loud
Same.
in the
And
back
as
of
I
my
was saying
mind.
that, I'm like, please don't
Yeah.
say it out loud.
Yeah. You said Little John. That was immediately where my mind went. Because again, that's how my mind worked. But anyway, Little John wanted to be, I will say this, and I say artist. I say that artist in the sense of I was a very, I guess theatrical is the right word, and I'm even still now very theatrical. Sometimes I'll like the thing about me, sometimes I'll sing and I don't realize I'm singing because that's just who I am. By nature, there's a song that's always in my head. And it's almost like it's almost like a jukebox because I'll go like last night, what was I singing last night? I was singing I don't know what I was singing. I was singing Toni Braxton because I'm going to see her next week in New Orleans.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden in my head, I started thinking about, oh, I watched Sinners earlier today. And then I was like, Pale Moon. So I just kept walking around the house singing Pale Moon. And my husband was like, are you done? Are you done? But like, every minute of the day for me is a song. And so I, as a kid, that was kind of how I lived. I was always kind of jigging, I was always kind of singing, and I always thought one day I was like, maybe one day I'll be on someone's stage. And throughout college, I mean, I did it. I sang, I danced, I did theater, I did all of the stuff in college. And it just didn't feel, what's the word, like after a while when you start to really understand the business of it, I told myself, and again, there's still an element of me, like every time I go to like a concert or every time I go to a show, like I'm always so like I'm enamored at the work of it, right? The work, like how did this come together? Who designed this? What the set list? Like I'm always thinking about, I can hear songs and think about, like, for instance, like I'm still mad that Beyonce didn't do when she did Before I Let Go in Renaissance. She could have cut into, there was another song that, or Candy. That was what I heard in one of her songs. Like she could have cut into Candy. Why didn't she so like I'm always thinking about musicality and all of that. And so just as a person, I've always been like, oh God, I wish I could be on stage, performing in that way. But after a while, when you start to realize the business of it all, like I was like, I don't want to lose the love for my talent per se, like the singing and the dancing and stuff, because it's fun for me. And so that's so like now when people ask me like, have you thought about, and I'm like, no, I'm actually okay with what I'm doing. Cause music and entertain, like music and theater and all that's fun for me. Like I want to live in that because I know so many people who are jaded. Like I was just reading, I went down a long, what do you call that when you go down a
Rabbit hole.
Rabbit hole. Thank you. I went down a long rabbit hole of why Lisa Fisher. I don't know if you know, but she has a song called "Can I Ease the Pain" from early 1990s. One of the best songs to ever come out of that era. And I went down a rabbit hole because I was like, well, what happened to her career? And case in point, she was doing it from a place of love, then got that song, won a Grammy from it, and then just eventually was like, yo, this is not for me. And so that's why I was like, okay, I think I'm okay. Like I always get these subtle messages that you have talent and you could do something with it if you really wanted to. But like I said, the business of it all, I'm just really not trying to lose the love of the talent that I have. So yeah, little me thought I was going to be a quote unquote celebrity, but the adult me recognizes the business of it and is very much okay with keeping it in my apartment.
Private concerts. Invite
Yes.
only.
And if you know me, you've heard me sing. And if you're around me enough, you'll catch a glimpse of me singing something. Or, if you listen to my podcast enough, you'll hear me every once in a while. I'll jump out into a ditty or two with my co-host. But for the most part, like I said, it's just fun for me.
Yeah.
If you are listening to this podcast as a non-subscriber, you are missing out. If you head over to my Substack, brandywashere.substack.com, you can become a free or paid subscriber to continue to support the podcast. You'll get my daily musings, you'll get written articles on personal, professional development, as well as some of my own lived experience and stories. You'll get access to future workshops and opportunities to work with me. So if you haven't already, please go to brandywashere.substack.com and become a subscriber today. Don't forget to say hello when you do.
You bring up a really good point because I think that happens with a lot of people who are really talented in a lot of different areas, not just musically or entertainment, but you love doing something, and then there's this business aspect, right, where you have to, one, constantly be in production, two, you're kind of governed and controlled by a lot of people outside of yourself, and then you have to constantly create things that produce money for you, because otherwise, why are you doing it? So the business of it is very complicated. In fact, Will Smith, I don't know if you've read his book, but he talks about this with Willow. When Willow first, she came out with this single, Whip My Hair, and she was on tour with Rock Nation, I believe. And they were doing a couple of dates and she was having fun. And by like the fourth date, she was like, Daddy, I'm done. And he goes, oh no, like you're doing a 50 city tour. You can't be done after the fourth show. And she was like, no, I'm done. Like I'm not having fun anymore. We have to rehearse every day. I have to get up at this time. Like we're traveling. I want to go home with my friends. And he was like, no, you signed a contract. Like you said you wanted to do this. And then she like shaved her head. So now she didn't have any hair to whip. And she was like, I'm done with the concert. And they pulled her off of the tour. It made me think of that because it was one of those kind of, she had to drastically say, I kind of just wanted to do this for fun. And I think she was like 9 or 10 at the time.
Yeah.
I did not want to be a touring artist. I didn't understand how that worked. I did want to be on the stage, but I did not want to be contractually obligated to perform.
And you sell, and I mean, and this is everything. Yeah, I mean, that's a great example. I mean, I'm familiar with that story, but I would say like that's a great example of a lot of the stuff. Like so many people will say, "Oh, I love the idea of this," and then I got there and realized that it's not what it is. That's the thing. Like, capitalism will suck the joy out of everything, right? Like even doing like working with LGBTQ youth. I love advocacy work. I love all that. But even the idea of like, I still have to make good money makes it so hard because you're doing so much with so little. Often it can be very, like I said, and when people ask me, they are like, John, you're always all over the place. You're always doing a lot of things. It's like, yeah, I have to, because I have to be able to afford to live in California the way I want to live. Like there is no, oh, this is enough for me. No, like you have to work. And so, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Like that was my number one thing was I don't ever want to lose the joy of the music that plays. Like I said, the music that's in my head, the joy that's in my head around my art, my creativity. I don't want to lose that. And so I think me not pursuing it as a career has definitely been the thing for me.
Yeah. What did you, or how did you decide what would be next for you when you decided, okay, this is my personal happy place. I'm keeping this to myself. I'm not going to monetize it. I'm not going to pursue this as a career. How did you figure out what to do next?
Yeah, well, I've always kind of just landed into, I wouldn't say I landed into each role that I've been in, but I will say like I've always carved out a space for me. So I also want to make it very clear that, for those of you who know my story, for those of you who are listening and they know me as Dr. John Paul, they know me as the person, I had a very large Twitter following before I deleted my Twitter. And I'm on Twitter now, but I'm only on it because I'm holding my name. So that way no one else can take it and do terrible things with it, because I know Twitter. But I was going to say, when I was back in my heyday of Twitter, and I would say this was 2015 to probably like 2020, 2021, of when Twitter was actually fun. I was known for being kind of the person online who, cracked jokes, but also made social awareness or made diversity or advocacy things funny. People always knew me as being that girl who was like, wow, this is a really real thing, but it's also hilarious. And so I garnered a following based off of that, but I also was an educator. For those of you who know me, I worked in higher ed from when I was in school, initially I thought I was going to land, like I said, I have a comm degree. So I started in communications, thought I was going to go into doing media/PR work, went to work for, I think it was Columbia. Was it Columbia? Yeah, I literally had an internship with Columbia, and my first week I said, I don't think this is for me. And so I left that, went back to school to get my master's in management because I was like, I just need to have a master's. I started working locally for the city of San Bernardino where I lived, and then fell into a higher ed job where I was kind of doing the same thing that I was doing for the city, but I was doing it for a college. I was doing programs. And that turned into me getting really rooted into like diversity and social justice issues, specifically for LGBTQ students, because I recognized that a lot of the kids that were living on campus didn't have anyone advocating for them. And so I was like, well, I'll do that. And then fell into kind of the whole NASPA and the ACUHO of, or WACUHO of it all, in housing, trying to make sure that I was doing more advocacy work, which led me to the job that I had with Long Beach. And I was the first associate director of multicultural affairs there. That was a shit show, period. Everyone knows, who knows me, they know that those 2 years that I worked there was an absolute shit show. And that led me to go work somewhere else. I can't say the name of them publicly because I sued them and won, but I worked there for a day. They fired me because they said at the time, like I said, my brand, I had just come off my TED Talk. I had all of these things that were and then also the hypervigilance around everything that happened with Eric Garner. I was also critiquing that, but also critiquing systems very publicly, both online and off. And eventually the job that I had taken in higher ed was like, yeah, you don't align with us. Have a nice day. And so I ended up leaving that job, but that literally that literally threw me into this kind of like, and again, I'll say this because I think sometimes people think what I set out to be an activist. I never called, and still to this day, I don't think of myself as an activist, right? A lot of people will say, oh, well, John, what you're doing is activist work. And I'm like, yeah, I do recognize that. But I think that there's a certain lifestyle and a certain way that activists move that I'm just not like, that's not me. That's never been me. That I've never been the girl that's gonna, let's get people together, let's march, let's organize this. That's not me. And so part of me is just that girl that's gonna walk into a room and say, okay, this thing don't feel right. What is we gonna do to make sure that we can, either learn the tenets of it, or how do we figure out how to resolve this? And so that's what my work has become. And I think that's what a lot of folks in the early 20s was calling on me for when I was working in entertainment. They loved the idea of me saying, how can we get white people to hold themselves accountable for the things that they do and don't do? And I'm going to always stand on that. I think that's just kind of what my career has become. I've started to lean into this idea of what, I forget what his name is. He passed away, John. He talks about being good trouble. I forget his last name, but this notion of just being good trouble. And what I mean by that is, my thing is this, and I've said this and then I'll shut up. As a Black, queer, fat, non-binary person, I don't get to be comfortable ever. Like, even in the moments when I should be comfortable, I'm not comfortable, right? Because the systems make it so that way I'm not. And I say it in the sense of, well, if I don't get the choice to be comfortable 24 hours of the day, I usually probably get the most comfortable is when I'm at home and I'm in my jammies and I'm sitting on my couch watching trash TV. That's probably the most comfortable I am. So that's usually about that's maybe 2-3 hours of the day. At the end of the day, I'm comfortable. So if I don't get to be comfortable for 22 hours of the day, 21 hours of the day, y'all white people gonna feel some uncomfortability too. And it's not my job to carry that. Oh, well, you made me uncomfortable. Oh, well, deal with it, right? Because I don't get the luxury to be comfortable 24 hours a day and you do. So that is literally where my mind is. If I'm calling out racism, if I'm calling out fat phobia, if I'm calling out misogyny, all of the above, if you feel uncomfortable in that moment, feel it. Tough. Deal. You'll be all right. That's literally what I yelled at a white person the other day. You'll be fine. Ain't nobody worried about you. Like, girl, you'll be all right. It's like, my feelings, I'm gonna cry. Let those tears out. You'll be all right afterwards. Ain't nobody hurting you. Girl, like my mom used to say, I'll give you something to cry about.
Right.
Yeah.
So I will say, how I came to know of you was through LinkedIn. So I know you were.
I'm nutty over there, honey. It's fun. I
missed the Twitter time. I'm sorry I did. I probably left Twitter a little too early, but
yeah, it's all good.
I came to know you on LinkedIn because, as you mentioned earlier, you are known for calling out things like you say the quiet part out loud and you stand on it, right? 10 toes down. And what I was seeing online were two things. One, a lot of people reposting you, kind of like, preaching to the choir, amen. And then there were some people who were either commenting on your post or reposting to say, like, this is unprofessional. It doesn't belong on LinkedIn. This is why, people aren't hiring you. This is why people aren't yada, yada, yada. But never like arguing with the fact or the truth of what your posts were saying. And so I was like, this person keeps popping up in my feed. Let me follow this person
Clock
because
that
this
T, girl.
right, because
Am
this
I
is
ever wrong?
actually what
No.
no, and no one ever says that. They'll say like this
Right.
might be misplaced, but if we're talking about the workplace, why are we not talking about it on LinkedIn, right? Because it makes people uncomfortable. So I think, you know, a lot of what you bring to the social space is your unique personal brand and identity. How did you grow to be that comfortable where you're going to pop up in a space where people are saying, this might not fit, this isn't for us, or you're making me uncomfortable, to just be like, you know what, I'm going to go for it? Because some people will say, and I get this a lot from my listeners, they're like, I hear you, but I want to keep my job,
but every time,
or I can't do it at work, or what if, blah, blah, blah. So how do you build that confidence to say, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, I'm going to say it on LinkedIn, on Twitter, in a line at Kava, wherever I am, like this is what I'm doing.
Well, you won't catch me in Kava because I don't like Mediterranean food like that. You may catch me in the Krispy Kreme line though. So I'm gonna say it like that in the Krispy Kreme line. Oh, I love this question because I think, you know, what we all have to balance, and I think as Black and brown people, we have to balance something called, a lot of it is respectability politics, right? We want to make sure, and that's the thing, that's the hard truth, is that no matter what we do, no matter where we go, no matter how we present in this world, we are all still playing a game of respectability politics. So I want to put that there first as kind of like the I'll say that as like the foundation of the seasoning of what I'm about to say. Yes, I recognize respectability politics are a thing, and I will say this, that I think when I got fired in 2017, which, you know, I've done my work around and it happened and I've moved past it, and I actually have a much better life because of it. I always tell people getting fired was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. I because it opened so many doors, it opened so many opportunities for me to really be able to say what I wanted to say the way I wanted to say it, because now people really know who I am and what I stand for. And I tell people, I don't want to work with you if I have to censure myself. And it's not like I'm walking into the room and looking at white people and being like, you're a terrible person. I don't do, that's not me, right? I'm not looking for an opportunity to make white people, quote unquote, uncomfortable. What I am simply saying is that thing you just did, that thing you just said is problematic. Do you know why? Right? And oftentimes I'll give them an opportunity for them to adhere to, you know, or to acknowledge what they did wrong, right? But oftentimes it's the idea of them actually having to actualize what they did and why they did it, and knowing that they did it, that makes them feel like, oh, John is a problem, right? Because again, I hold people accountable. So I say all of that to say how I got to this place of saying, well, shit, I'm just going to say what needs to be said the way it needs to be said, regardless of what platform I'm on, is this. The two things. One, like I said, getting fired, that proved to me that, and even in that moment, I was still trying to play the devil's game, if that's the way, if that's the right way of saying it, right? I was still in higher ed. I was still wearing a suit and tie. I was still showing up to work, no nails done. I wasn't wearing heels the way I wanted to. I was still very much playing the academic game the way that they wanted to. And they still said, we don't want you here. So have a nice day. So literally getting fired, it was like, well, shit, I played the game and I still lost, right? So I might as well keep saying what the fuck I need to say, right? But the other part of that was I had to do some real deep soul searching. And I thought to myself, and again, this may land, this may not, but I thought to myself, I said, you know, I think the thing I hold very clear in my head is, you know, Malcolm X said the truth. They killed him. Dr. Martin Luther King said the truth, but he said it in a way that white people could digest it, and they still killed him too.
Yeah.
So
still,
I go back and forth between that notion of no matter how I say it, no matter what I do, they're still going to figure out a way to oppress me. That's literally the world I live in. And it's not that I'm constantly in a place of, you know, and I tell people all the time, my life is fantastic, honey. I have a beautiful life. I have a beautiful husband. I have a cat who adores me. You know, I have a home. You know, I have a good relationship with my parents. Me and my brother are closer than we've ever been. Like my life is good. However, there is always that however, that but that people like to put in there. The reality is, even if you keep your mouth closed, they are still going to come for you. And that's the thing I keep trying to explain to people. Y'all are trying to play this game. Y'all are trying to play the respectability politics. Y'all are still trying to say, well, I got to keep my job. Nah, nigga, they still gonna fire your ass. They are still going to do everything.
That's
We
the
saw that
ready.
we saw that at the top of 2025 when they fired 600,000 Black women from their roles.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, no matter what game you play, they are still going to make sure you lose. So my thing is this, I'm going to go out fighting. That's literally the energy that I give. Y'all gonna come for me. And I say this about two people who, listen to my show and send messages and send hate messages and stuff to me on Threads, because I get a lot of those too. I tell people, y'all can show up, but please be prepared to know that I am prepared to protect myself. I am always in the mind of, I'm gonna do what I need to do to take care of me. But at the same time, I'm also gonna let people know that trying to play this game is not gonna save you, honey. And I think about it too. I also think of Zora Neale Hurston's quote, right, about this idea that they will kill you and say you enjoyed it. That is the energy that I constantly that quote lives in the back of my mind of, these people know exactly what they're doing. They know how they're doing it. They are going to continue to keep doing it as long as I let them. And so that's the reason why I say, I don't really care what you think about me. Like I said, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about what people think about Dr. John Paul. I'm here to do what I need to do and to tell other Black and brown and queer fat folks that they have the audacity to live the way they want to live and to be free. And that is literally what I feel like my calling has always been. Baby, be free. Be free. Because the only prison that lives on this earth is the prisons we put ourselves in.
Okay, listeners, I will be listening to those last 3 minutes for, I don't know, that's going to be part of my morning routine now. I hope you got out of that what I got out of that, because yes, I think people think that they're protecting themselves by not showing up as themselves. And then that's where you get the stress. That's where you get the burnout. That's where you get all of these physical ailments that you can't explain, and you don't know why you don't have any energy, or you always seem to be in a bad mood, because you are not free. You are denying yourself and trying
You're playing a losing game.
You're playing this losing game and you don't even realize it. You mentioned about the laying off. I was one of those people. Who was laid off last year, who thought like, okay, my job is the security and I'll just do all the things I want to do and work around it. And then no, there was no security and nobody cared. Nobody was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening to you. They were like, you can't find a job on LinkedIn? Oh, okay.
Too bad.
You should keep applying. You should keep applying. Maybe try this, maybe try that. Like nobody was coming to save us. And so I echo that. Like, you need to take care of yourself, do what you need to do for you to be happy, because whatever people want to do or whatever's going to happen is going to happen, and you have to be okay in the end. For sure. So yes, please re-listen to that part, because that was good. That being said, you have talked about a lot of pivots that kind of really just seemed to line up for you, right? It seemed like you left one thing and kind of was able to go into another. What are the things that kind of help and sustain you as you are transitioning and pivoting between jobs, roles, etc.?
I think never getting locked into this idea that your life or your career has to look the way that other people want it to look. I think that has been the thing for me, right? So, I say go where your skills are. Go where also lean into the things that people celebrate about you. I mean, one of the things that has really helped me, and I say this, I recognize that applying for programs can be annoying, but apply for that program, apply for that opportunity. And when I say that, I'm not talking about just a job. I'm talking about, I wouldn't have my award-winning podcast if I didn't apply for the iHeart Fellowship that I was in, the Next Step Fellowship. I wouldn't have my writing career if I didn't go to France and do the writing the way that I did, or I wouldn't have my book deal if I didn't constantly, test things on social media and put stuff out there. Like same thing with video content, right? Like, I mean, I'm looking at folks like Dominique Morgan, who has built a huge following, by just being themselves online and talking about things in what I call their real voice, right? Not putting on for other people. And I think that's the thing that has really helped me keep my career, and sustain my career, is that people will always, people, and also too, I think this is the other thing, is building friendships and connections instead of just always networking, because I think, especially on LinkedIn is notorious for constantly being like, oh, you got to network, you got to network, you got to network. But it's like, no, where can we find meaningful relationships with people? There have been people that I know in LA, like who say, oh, I'm moving to LA. Can we connect? Hell yeah, I'll drive out to LA and we can have coffee and we can have dinner and we can chat. And some of my most closest friendships have come from that, is, you know, and job opportunities too, honey. Like I've always had people, like, for instance, I just recently gave a talk at Microsoft, and that came from a relationship that I had built with somebody who had said, oh, I work at Microsoft, or my wife works at Microsoft. I would love for you to be able to come in and talk. And they made it happen. Right. So like, I think about that a lot. It's just this notion of put your authentic self out there. And that's what I talk about. I mean, and I always hate to like, oh, let me go back to my book, but that's part of what I wrote in my book. You know, part of chapters 9, 10, and 11 of my book are really talking about this idea of what it means to live in authenticity. And I think for me, I've told the universe, and I always think about, you know, the folks up there who look down on me and help take care of me, right? They tell me, John, just show up as your most authentic self, and the right places and the right people and the right things will find you. And that is literally what I've had to just move through. And, you know, do I make tons of money like other people who are putting on and are playing the corporate game? No, but what I can say is that I do sleep well at night. You know, I sleep really well at night. Right. Like I don't have to worry about, you know, am I going to say the wrong thing in that meeting? Because I always say, like, sometimes I'll say stuff and people are like, oh, I'm going to go tell your boss. I'm going to go find, you know, the people that work over here, and I'm going to tell them. And I'm like, you can tell them, honey, because they know who I am. They already know. Now they know who I am. Right. They, you know, when one of my students, you know, a few years ago, I had a student get really upset that I was teaching social justice practice in a class. And they were like, I'm going to go to the dean. And I said, well, baby, you do recognize that I have a doctorate of educational justice. So they know already that part of my classes are going to have social justice practice in it. So good luck with that. Like, same thing. Like at this point, I'm the most authentic version of myself. And I think that's the thing I keep calling in. I tell people that, you know, yeah, you can play the game, but you can only play the game for so long. And I think for me, like I said, am I making the money I want to make? Probably not. But I will say at the end of the day, I'm very, very happy, and things continue to find me because I keep leaning into the things that genuinely make me feel like I can be me.
I love that. First, let me say, you wrote a book. We are never going to stop talking about it. We're going to talk about this book forever. Okay. It's a thing.
Thank you.
We'll talk about it forever. Yeah. So bring it up as much as possible. There's 3 things that I want to elaborate on further. You talked about networking versus building real relationships with people. What's your definition of networking?
Definition of networking is, would I allow these people in my home? Like, you know, do I truly want to be in community with these people? And that's the thing that I think has helped me so much, is that every person that I have around me who has helped me are people that I genuinely would feel comfortable with saying, yeah, come on over, let's have dinner. You know, here's my address. Like for instance, even one of my bosses, Will, I can just text Will at any given time. Yeah, Will is my boss at iHeart, but Will is also my friend. Like I see Will for who Will is, and Will sees me for who I am, and we help each other. And that's the thing. Like, I'm not looking at it from the sense of what can you do for me? I'm looking at it from the sense of we got each other. And I think that's the thing that's missing, sometimes immediately missing on LinkedIn, is that a lot of people are looking for opportunity. They're not looking for a relationship or a connection with someone. And that's what I look for. I don't want just an opportunity. I want us to feel like when we're in the same room, or even if we're on in a chat room or Zoom, whatever, that you know that I got your back and you got mine.
I love the way that you frame networking, because I feel like I'm like that too. If I'm connected with somebody, I always think to myself, am I going to give them my real phone number? Right. Not the Google Voice, not the business line. Like, well, I'll give this person my real phone number and be okay if they contacted me for any reason. Right. But you're absolutely right. Online people are like, in fact, I stopped accepting LinkedIn requests because every person is messaging me, and then immediately the message is, I'm selling this product, or, you know, are you hiring, or do you know, I see that you're connected to so-and-so. Can you introduce me? It's like, who are you? First of all. Like, let's get to know each other. Like, if I didn't recognize you from commenting on any of my posts, did I meet you somewhere? Like, why are you so concerned about being connected with people? And I think we've definitely lost the meaning of connection because we think, oh, I'm going to add this person, they'll be a part of my network, and now I can just call on them for favors without even knowing the person whatsoever.
That's it.
That's it. The second thing I wanted to talk about, because you do talk about authenticity quite a bit in your book, one of the things that comes up, and this is kind of going hand in hand when we talk about authenticity, is really setting boundaries for yourself within that authenticity, right?
Yeah.
So showing up as your authentic self sometimes alerts people, or people take that as permission to now pry into areas of your personal life or give you unsolicited advice or feel like they can now call you out on certain things. So how do you manage your boundaries in being authentic? Because just because you show up online and tell it like it is doesn't mean now that people can jump into certain areas of your life and feel like now they have a say.
Yeah, I would say the easiest thing, I mean, because I can go on for hours about how people overstep with me. I think oftentimes people think too, because I am very funny and genuine and very, I'll say this, like, I'm the nicest person that you could meet, and I pride myself on that. But there are people who oftentimes, habitual line steppers. There are people who like to line step. And I will say one of the things that I have learned is, very much kind of being this idea of correcting people in that moment, or when they line step. I think we have a habit of letting people line step, and then it builds, and then we end up popping off at somebody.
Yeah.
And I have had to tell people up frontly, like, I'll say this, there was a person who reached out to me, and she, was like, I would love this and I would love this. Can you assist? And I said, yeah, we can sit down, we could talk, and I can give you some advice. And then eventually it just started becoming, well, I just want to know if there's somebody in your network who could take a look. And I'm like, wait a second. No, that's not how any of this works, right? I didn't offer to put up any of your information in front of people that I know. The big name people that I follow, or the actors and actresses who I know could potentially, get you to a producer, etc. That's not what this was about. This was about me telling you, I've gone through A, B, C, and D. If you want to go down this pathway, these are the things you should be aware of. But so it's just being comfortable enough to let people know, that's, like I said, you just got to correct people in the moment. That's literally the only way that I feel like you can protect yourself and you can protect your boundaries.
Yeah. In the moment. Don't wait. Don't let it sit on your mind. Don't go home angry. Tell them, right? Cuss them out today, right? Like we said earlier.
So you can sleep better tonight. Yes.
I love that. Okay, so my tagline for this show is how to live your best life in real life. So what does living your best life mean to you, and what advice would you give to other people wanting to do the same?
Yeah, living your best life, oh God, how do I live my best life? I think sleep. No, one thing is telling people what you need, I think, is a big part of living your best life. And also, letting people know who you are. And when I say is, I think so many of us, I talk about this actually in my dissertation, and this is part of the reason why I moved from this place of authenticity, because I learned so much in that research process of my doctoral dissertation. I always tell people so one of the things that I have said, and I've said this just in passing, is the voice that you hear in your head is often not your voice. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the things you think about yourself, a lot of the things that you think about who you are, a lot of the things that you are led to believe are not you. These are things that somebody has either said to you or someone has said about you that you have taken on as truth. And so part of me living my best life is recognizing, being able to kind of be like, wait a second, is that your voice or is that someone else's voice in my head? And I play that game a lot because, again, it's a part of being very self-aware. And so part of me living my best life is trying to listen to that voice in my head that's mine and that says, oh, girl, you right about that. You right. You right because you feel this way, and don't let other people make you feel a different way about it. But I also believe too, finding the people who, I think the other part of it is that finding the people in your life who celebrate you without I always say, please blame COVID, because I blank a lot because now I'm like trying to think of the words. but I will say, like, people who celebrate you without, I guess, restrictions is the word I want to go to. Like, people who don't, I like you, but you're a little much. I love being around you, but girl, you could be a little loud. No, that you're always singing and you're always dancing, and that's too much. Okay, then we can't be friends, right? Because that's just who I am.
Yeah.
I just want to tell you the one thing. I'm gonna crack jokes. And if you don't like the fact that I find every fucking thing funny, then we don't need to be friends, because that's just who I am. I find everything to be hilarious, even if it's terrible, because sometimes racism is funny. And at the same time, I can name it and say that's fucked up. And we don't, but that was funny, right? Like, like that's the kind of world that I live in, right? I don't live in a world where I take, like, people who take themselves too seriously are the people who don't make it out of this life too long. And I'm doing my best to, like, I want to at least see 80, 85. I would like to be able to sit on my rocking chair in front of my house, telling the kids to stay off of my lawn. That's what I want to be able to do. And so I think that's the part of me living my best life, is really having a vision for where I want my life to go and what I want it to be, but also at the same time recognizing that, like the tagline of my show, we may not be your cup of tea, but drink some water. You'll be all right. I am very much okay with the idea that I am not for everybody and everybody's not for me. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest part of me living my best life is knowing and being okay with the idea that I genuinely am at a place in my life where I love every single thing about myself. So.
I hope we all get there. I love what you said about the voice in your head, because sometimes something I had to do a few years ago was actually write down those voices that kept popping up in my head, and then rewrite and actually tell them no. Like, actually, no, I don't believe that about myself. Actually, I don't find that to be true. Because some of it, not only is it someone else's voice, it's a lie, right? These are things that have not happened. They're not true. They're unfounded. There's no evidence. And you just keep replaying it in your head. And now you're walking around miserable, and it's not even true. So you definitely have to call out those things and move forward differently.
What they say, the devil is a liar and a fat mouth. That is literally it. Yeah, that is literally it.
Okay, well, I'm a little sad because we have reached the end of the podcast here. And so I really just have one more question, which is to say, what, if anything, did you want to share that you were not asked today?
I mean, these questions are fantastic, honey.
Thank you.
I think they're great questions. This was fun. I think the only thing, I'm big on in these days is do what you need to do to take care of you, because at the end of the day, people are so notorious for taking so much from you and asking so much of you, and then you're left with nothing. I'm very much in the mind of, I give the world so much, what am I giving to myself? And so if it means I'm going out to buy, and again, I've been called everything from, you're egotistical, or you're what's the word again? Here we go with this, me trying to figure out what the word is. You're egotistical, but you're also when you're focused on money, or you're focused on name brands, clothing, and all that.
Materialistic.
Thank you. You're materialistic. Activists shouldn't be materialistic. You shouldn't be, who said
I can have nice things. I can have
nice things. So, take care of you. I say that. Not saying that you need to put yourself in debt, because a lot of people like nice things, but they ain't got the money. How you doing? So I make, I tell people everything that I own that is nice is paid for. I can afford it. And I think the thing is, but also self-care doesn't have to be bubble baths and trips to Louis Vuitton, even though those are things I enjoy. Self-care can also be telling someone, no, not today, or I don't think this opportunity is good for me because y'all are terrible people and you need to find somebody else. Self-care is also telling people, these are my pronouns and you need to respect them. Self-care can also be telling people, please stop asking me questions about my weight. Self-care can be telling someone, please don't call me after 6 p.m. or every time you call me with some shit. Can you call me with something better? That's what I want to tell people. Like, you have the it's your life. It is your life. You only get one chance to do this. And if we do come back, You know, I want to come back as a cat. I've already asked God to bring me back as a kitty. And it could be any cat. It can be a lion. It could be a house cat. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I just want to come back as a cat. But I say all of that to say, like, set your boundaries, take care of you, because at the end of the day, this world, as much as we talk about capitalism, this world sees you as capital. And it is going to take everything from you that it can if you allow it. And so I'm just very big on please do what you need to do to take care of you and worry about them other people tomorrow. If not next week.
Or not at all.
Not at all. Or not at all. Or not at all.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, this was such a good conversation. Listeners, you know what to do next. All of Dr. John Paul's information is going to be in the show notes and the comments. So follow, like, subscribe, purchase that book, multiple copies, hand them out to your friends for summer reading time. You know, we're getting into spring break. You need something to read. Give them out as gifts. Okay, we're going to support. I thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Thank you for giving so much insight and wisdom to my listeners. Yes. This is great. Is there any final or parting words? I'll let you have the last word.
No, thank you for having me. It has been this was a great way to end. For those of you, this is the end of our week. So this was just a great way to end the end of our weekend. I'm just grateful to be here. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.